Ryan had always seen the world in clean lines and angles. He built with precision, with intention. As an architect, he believed in form meeting function, in symmetry that whispered rather than shouted, in spaces that breathed even in silence. His life was a quiet draft rendered in graphite and discipline, and every inch of it had been planned, until MIA arrived. MIA was not chaos. She was kinetic beauty, movement, laughter, firelight in human form. She brought a pulse to every space she entered. While Ryan measured the load-bearing weight of structures, MIA measured moments by memory, the way a song made her feel. The glow of streetlights on rainy glass. The soft thrill of unpredictability. She worked as a creative producer for a boutique entertainment agency, an ecosystem of spectacle and spontaneity. She handled viral events, curated celebrity campaigns, navigated high-strung artists and impossible timelines with ease. Where Ryan found clarity in blueprints, MIA found poetry in disruption. Their worlds collided at a museum fundraiser that neither wanted to attend. Ryan went out of obligation, a favor to a developer client. MIA came along as a last-minute date to a colleague. Bored before the appetizers had even been served. It was beside a sculpture made of rusted copper and welded regret that she turned to him and said, "Looks like a broken wedding ring, doesn't it?" Without glancing up, Ryan replied, "At least it's honest." She laughed, full, round, surprised. She stayed. He didn't ask her name right away, but he remembered her laugh. 1 week later, they were drinking coffee on a sidewalk bench. 1 month later, they were watching sunrises from inside his half-renovated apartment. 1 year later, she was painting a mural on his office wall, barefoot and humming. And 4 years after that night at the museum, they were planning a wedding. They were opposites, but not in the way people assumed. MIA didn't tame Ryan's discipline, she gave it purpose. Ryan didn't extinguish her flame, he gave it form. He was the scaffolding, she was the light show. They argued, of course, sometimes spectacularly, about time, about space, about the meaning of rest. But they loved in a way that didn't flinch, didn't retreat. They returned to each other. Always. She called him her gravity. He called her his impossible equation. The wedding planning was a map of their differences. Ryan designed spreadsheets for catering. MIA curated scent profiles for the candles. He booked the venue with a checklist. She dreamed up surprises for the guests. But even amidst the disagreements, there was laughter, there was compromise. They met in the middle not because it was easy, but because they wanted to. 2 weeks before the wedding, MIA floated the idea of a bachelorette party. Nothing extravagant, she insisted, just a few close friends. Good music, 1 night of pre-married freedom. I'll probably be in unicorn slippers by midnight, she teased, sipping oat milk from his favorite mug. Ryan looked up from his laptop. Just promise me it won't end with a police report. She leaned over the table and kissed his forehead. It'll be so boring, you'll regret not coming. He smiled, but something in him paused. Not suspicion, not jealousy, just the quiet hum of distance. The way wind changes before a storm. The night of the party, Ryan offered to drive her. He said it was because parking downtown was a nightmare. But it wasn't. It was because he wanted to see her before she vanished into that other world, her world. The one of glitter, cocktails, curated chaos. In the passenger seat, MIA looked ethereal. Her dress shimmered like silk dipped in starlight. The color of celebration. Her lips were bold. Her earrings caught the city light. But her eyes were somewhere between excitement and mischief. "You sure you want to drop me off here?" she asked, adjusting her hair in the mirror. "I just want to make sure you make it inside without tripping over your own heels," he teased. She rolled her eyes, laughing. "You're such a dad." He reached across and tucked a curl behind her ear. "Just enjoy it, and text me if your unicorn slippers make an appearance." She smiled, softer now. "Thank you, for trusting me, for not being weird about this." He hesitated, then nodded. "I trust you, MIA." She leaned in and kissed him. The kind of kiss that was more memory than moment. something rehearsed in the heart 100 times. Then she stepped out. He watched her walk away, heels clicking. Laughter ahead of her, the door to the bar glowing open like a stage curtain ready to rise. She turned once, raised her hand. "I'll see you tomorrow, future husband." And Ryan, still gripping the steering wheel, replied, "I'll see you tomorrow, future Mrs." He watched until the bar swallowed her whole. And then, he drove away. He didn't look back, not because he didn't want to, but because men like Ryan believed in structure, in design, in the kind of love that stayed. He didn't know that architecture could shatter from the inside. He didn't know that beauty could betray. He didn't know that by the time the sun rose again, the blueprint he built his heart upon would be nothing more than ash on wind. He didn't know, but he would. Ryan came home that evening under a slate-colored sky, the kind that hung low and heavy. Like it, too, knew something was about to break. The meeting had run long. Numbers, projections, timelines, his bread and butter, but none of it could quiet the strange hum behind his thoughts. A flicker of unease he hadn't been able to name since the moment MIA stepped out of the car the night before, disappearing behind the glowing bar doors like a secret swallowed by the city. His apartment was silent. Mia's perfume lingered faintly in the hallway, vanilla and citrus. He loosened his tie, kicked off his shoes, and dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl she'd made at a corporate retreat, the one he secretly thought was hideous but kept anyway because she had laughed so hard while making it. He moved toward the kitchen, the weight of the day beginning to slip from his shoulders. He wanted a glass of water, maybe music, something soft, but instead, he found a piece of paper folded neatly on the table. Not a note, not a letter, a receipt. It was glossy, curled slightly at the edges, smudged in one corner. The name of the establishment was printed in gold at the top. Verite, a rooftop bar MIA had once joked was too fancy for real conversation. He recognized it immediately. She had said they were going somewhere low-key. Ryan sat down slowly, the way someone might lower themselves into cold water. He read through the items. 2x old-fashioned, 1x champagne flight, 3x house cocktail, bartender's choice, appetizers, chocolate lava cake. Time, 12:42 a.m. He stared at the timestamp. MIA had texted him at 11:30, "We're heading home soon." "Baby, you still awake?" Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. No suspicion, not yet, just confusion, a tickle of curiosity that clung to his spine. He opened his laptop and typed "Verite Rooftop Bar" into the search engine. The page loaded in polished photos and curated promises, panoramic views, artisan cocktails, mood lighting. A click later, he was on the Google reviews page, scrolling aimlessly, until he saw it. A photo, grainy but recent, a man, young, bearded, in a bartender's apron, taking a selfie behind the bar. In the background, barely in focus, stood MIA, laughing, her head tilted back, her hand raised mid-toast. And beside her, his arms slung casually around her waist, stood the bartender. Ryan zoomed in. Mia's smile was radiant. Too radiant. He felt a strange stillness settle in his chest. Not anger, not yet, just the absence of equilibrium. The sense that something, somewhere, had shifted while he wasn't looking. He opened Instagram, scrolled through Mia's stories. Nothing suspicious, just blurred shots of drinks, friends dancing, a skyline glittering like a promise. But as he switched to his secondary account, the one he used for architecture inspiration, something caught his eye. She had tagged him by mistake. Not his public account, not the one with pictures of their trips, their dog, their engagement ring sparkling against her skin. No, she had tagged his private profile, a space he never gave to anyone, a place for solitude. And there it was, a story, timestamped 12:39 a.m. MIA, laughing, phone swaying, music pulsing in the background. The angle unsteady, but in the shifting light, Ryan saw it. Her face, the bartender, their bodies, close, too close, and then it happened, quick, blurred, but unmistakable. Her hand reached out, He leaned in, lips brushed, then met. A kiss. No hesitation, no confusion, just gravity. Ryan's heart didn't race. It slowed, the kind of slowing that happens before collapse. He put down the phone. His hands were steady, but the silence in the room had changed. It was no longer soft. It was charged. It was waiting. He stood up, walked to the window. The city lights blinked back at him. Millions of lives unaware that one had just come undone. A single thought crystallized, clear and cruel. She kissed him, not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally, physically, undeniably. And then she had come home, slipped into bed beside him, whispered "I love you" with the taste of someone else still in her mouth. Ryan sat back down. The receipt lay on the table like evidence in a trial he hadn't known he was attending. He turned it over. On the back, MIA had scribbled something with a pen. Tip big. He's cute as hell. XO. He stared at the handwriting. His breath left him in one long, slow exhale. The world didn't end in fire. It ended with a receipt. A name, a time, a kiss frozen in pixels. And a man who, until now, had never truly understood what it meant to be alone. Not until he was sitting at his kitchen table, surrounded by the faint smell of her perfume, realizing that the person he trusted most had chosen a stranger over their vows, even before they were made. Ryan didn't sleep that night, not because of rage, or despair, or any grand cinematic fury, but because of stillness. The kind that settles into the bones when the heart realizes it has nothing left to ask. He sat in the dark for hours, the phone face down on the kitchen table. The receipt folded and unfolded until the creases grew soft like old paper. The lights stayed off. He didn't need them. Every detail of the apartment was memorized. The height of the counter, the way the wood floor creaked near the fridge, the soft hum of the faulty outlet near the stove. He had built this home with MIA. Now it was a house of ghosts. When dawn began to seep through the windows, pale and apologetic, Ryan stood up and walked to the printer in his office. He moved without urgency. His limbs were calm, his breath steady. He inserted the USB drive into the port, selected the files, the video from her story, the photo from the review, the screen capture of the mistaken tag, the image of the receipt. He pressed print. One by one, the pages emerged. Paper memories, not interpretation, not rumor, just evidence. Then, with deliberate quiet, he walked to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, slipped the engagement ring from his finger, held it in his palm for a moment like a coin he was reluctant to give up. It wasn't just metal, it was 1,000 mornings and whispered plans. It was her laughter in a coffee shop, her breath in winter air. But now, it was just a ring. He placed it on the nightstand. Beside it, he laid the wedding invitation. He took scissors from the drawer and sliced the invitation in half, clean. Even, no drama, a single gesture, final, measured. He wrote a note on the back of one half. I never wanted the spotlight. But now you'll have it all to yourself. No signature. She would know. Ryan packed only what mattered. Not because he was angry, but because there was no longer anything tethering him to the rest. He folded his clothes, rolled his charges, placed his shaving kit neatly in the side pocket. He took the notebook he kept by the bed, the one MIA had once doodled hearts in when he left it unattended. He didn't look at the pages. He didn't burn anything. He didn't cry. He simply folded his life into a bag and zipped it closed. In the email draft folder, he opened a new message. The recipient, Mia's supervisor at her agency. Her company had a strict policy about conduct, especially during events involving clients or partner venues. Ryan had never imagined using it. But now, the irony sang like a cruel lullaby. The subject line read, "Professional conduct concern." He attached the video, the image, the receipt. He wrote, I debated whether to send this. But I believe transparency matters when leadership is involved. This occurred at a company-endorsed venue during what I believe was an employee's off-hour event. I leave the judgment to you. He did not mention her name. He did not need to. The footage spoke. He pressed send. It was 6:04 a.m. The apartment remained dim as he made a final round. He placed the printed photos and the note next to the halved invitation. He straightened them, not out of care, but because disorder had no place here anymore. He turned off his phone and placed it in the drawer. And then, he walked out. No note on the door. No dramatic pause in the hallway. Just silence. Heavy, deliberate silence. When MIA returned hours later, still groggy from too much wine and too little sleep, she expected the usual. Ryan curled on the couch with tea. Her slippers waiting by the door. The soft sound of his typing in the background. What she found was absence. The apartment wasn't messy, it was vacant. Drawers half empty, closet lighter, his cologne no longer perched by the sink. The ring was the first thing she saw, shining in the morning light. Indifferent. Then the halved invitation, the message, and the envelope. She opened it. Her hands trembled. The video loaded first. She saw herself, laughing, leaning, kissing, the bartender's hand at her hip. Then the screenshots, the tag, the receipt, the note. Mia's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. She called him, straight to voicemail. Again, voicemail. A third time, nothing. Messages poured from her fingertips. Where are you? Please call me. This isn't what it looks like. Ryan, I'm sorry, I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. No answer. Only stillness. Outside, the city moved. Cars passed. People lived. But inside the apartment, inside her chest, everything stilled, like glass shattered in water. Ryan was gone. Not because of anger. Not because he wanted her to hurt. But because staying would have meant pretending. And Ryan had never built anything on lies. Not even love. And so, for the second time in a single life, he vanished. Not into rage, but into peace. The message arrived in the company's inbox at 6:07 a.m., a quiet storm disguised as pixels. By 8:14, it had slipped through layers of protocol, passed from assistant to director, until it landed on the mahogany desk of Mia's supervisor. By 9 o'clock, a closed-door meeting had been convened. Coffee cooled in untouched mugs. Eyes darted, mouths pursed. Mia's face flickered across the screen, caught in the soft focus blur of nightclub lighting. Her lips pressed against the bartender's. Her laugh unmistakable. There was no need for speculation. This wasn't hearsay, it was a confession in images. The agency prided itself on reputation. Their clients were A-listers, luxury brands, international partners. Conduct was not a suggestion, it was currency. And MIA, once one of their brightest stars, had bartered hers away for a moment she could no longer explain. At 10:26 a.m., her phone buzzed. She hadn't moved in hours. The apartment still smelled like last night's perfume. The halved wedding invitation lay limp on the kitchen table like a broken wing. Her inbox had become a graveyard of missed calls and unanswered texts. The notification read, "Kara, HR department." She answered, "Hi, MIA, we need you to come in." Immediately, the building was colder than she remembered. Or maybe she was just exposed. As she walked through the glass doors, heads turned, some out of curiosity, others out of pity, and a few with that predatory gleam only gossip could bring. This was the place where she had once floated between meetings with ease. Where she had hosted brainstorms that turned into standing ovations. Where interns whispered her name like a legend. Now they whispered something else. She stepped into the conference room. No handshake, no smile, no offer of water. Her supervisor sat stiffly at the head of the table, flanked by HR and legal. MIA, he began, his voice heavy with practiced disappointment. We've reviewed the materials sent to us. What you do in your personal life is your choice, but when it collides with a professional event, in a partner venue, it becomes ours. She opened her mouth. Words hovered but never formed. What could she possibly say? That it was just a kiss? That she was drunk? That she hadn't meant for any of this to happen? But it had happened. We're terminating your contract. Effective immediately, he said. This decision is final. Her ID badge was collected. Her email account deactivated. The projects she had built, campaigns, pitch decks, client rosters, were transferred to someone else within the hour. Her legacy, like her reputation, erased with one keystroke. The scandal didn't stay inside the building. Within 24 hours, word had trickled into industry circles. Screenshots floated between DMs, forwarded with commentary like, "Is this real?" and "I thought they were perfect." A clip, just 2 seconds long, found its way to a private influencer forum. From there, it metastasized. Mia's phone rang once, then again, and again, not with support, not with sympathy, but with silence in the form of withdrawal. One by one, her friends faded, a cancelled lunch, a birthday dinner postponed indefinitely. Group chats went dormant, no one said anything outright. They didn't have to. She had become radioactive. But the worst blow didn't come from strangers. It came from him, the bartender, the man whose arms she had fallen into for a moment, thoughtless, weightless, meaningless. She messaged him the night she returned home and found Ryan gone. Desperate, breathless, apologetic. He didn't reply. The next morning, she found herself unfollowed. By the afternoon, blocked. A text she sent bounced back. User not found. That kiss, which had cost her everything, had meant nothing to him. It was a party trick. A story he'd already stopped telling. And Mia, who had once believed herself untouchable in her charisma, invincible in her allure, felt the edges of her identity begin to fray. She began calling Ryan, again, and again. Her texts shrank into fragments. "Please, I'm sorry. It wasn't real. Talk to me." The messages were delivered. None were read. She used a friend's phone. Left a voicemail. Her voice cracked. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve anything. But please, don't erase me. I'm still here. I'm still me. Please, Ryan." But even that was swallowed by silence. She sat in the apartment they had chosen together, surrounded by the things they once laughed over. The ceramic lamp they'd argued about. The couch she insisted on despite its uncomfortable arms. The fridge still stocked with his almond milk. Everything around her echoed, but nothing answered. She looked in the mirror and saw a version of herself she didn't recognize. Not the woman who dazzled boardrooms or made strangers smile at airport terminals. No, this woman was hollow, her voice unfamiliar, her eyes rimmed with shame. Her phone no longer buzzed. No emails, no calls, no lifeline. And Ryan, she didn't know where he was. Only that he wasn't looking back. Because sometimes, the cruelest form of punishment is not exposure, not confrontation. It's absence. Not slamming doors or shouted curses. Just nothing. And in that nothing, Mia finally understood what she had done. Not just to Ryan, not just to her career, but to herself. She had gambled everything for a spark. And in return, she was left with ashes. Alone, uninvited, unanswered. The ocean doesn't offer answers. It doesn't offer forgiveness. It offers space. And in that space, Ryan found the silence he had been aching for. He arrived in the coastal town with no itinerary, no map, no timeline, just a duffel bag, a worn leather journal, and the kind of quiet grief that doesn't scream, but hums beneath the skin like electricity. The town itself was modest. The kind of place where buildings leaned from age and familiarity, where porch lights flickered at dusk not out of design, but fatigue. Ryan didn't speak to anyone that first week. He rented a small cabin overlooking the sea, wood-paneled, sun-faded, with creaking floorboards and a rust-stained kettle that groaned every morning as it boiled. It was perfect. Here, the sky met the water with no ambition. Here, the world didn't know his name. He didn't turn on his phone. He didn't check his email. He left the weight of digital surveillance behind, choosing instead to live by the rhythm of tide and sky. Every morning, he walked the shore barefoot, letting the salt bite at his ankles. Every evening, he sat by the window with his journal open, not always writing, but always listening. And somewhere in those pages, halfway down the 6th entry, he wrote, "You don't need validation from someone who betrayed you." The words startled him when he saw them, not because they were profound, but because they were final. In the city, Mia's voice might still be echoing through unanswered texts and voicemails. But here, on the edge of the continent, there was only wind and wave. No confrontation, no revenge, just release. He had once believed silence was cowardice, that real men fought for closure, for vindication, for the right to say one last thing. But now he understood the truth. Silence is not retreat, it's a boundary, a line drawn in sand, not with blood, but not without pain, because silence says what shouting never can. It says, I am done explaining my worth. It says, your absence is no longer a wound, it's just space. Each day, Ryan wrote more, not letters to MIA, those stopped long ago. Now, his pages were filled with fragments of self. Notes on the shape of cloudbanks. Sketches of the horizon. Lines like, I am not who I was when I left. But I am not broken either. He read books he had long ignored, cooked simple meals, repaired a broken leg on a driftwood chair, slept with the windows open and let the gulls wake him at dawn. And slowly, he began to remember who he had been before the idea of MIA had wrapped around his identity like ivy. She had not defined him. She had distracted him. Love, he realized, is not always about giving. Sometimes it is about letting go of who you became to hold someone else together. The sunset came late one evening, casting the world in a golden hush. Ryan sat on the bench just outside the cabin, legs stretched out, hands resting on the wood beside him. The sun dropped into the sea like a whispered apology, and in its light, Ryan's face looked neither angry nor sad, only peaceful. There was no more bitterness, no desire for vindication. Just the quiet knowledge that healing had taken root, and not because MIA had asked for forgiveness, but because he had stopped waiting for her to. He reached into his pocket and unfolded a page from his journal. The ink was smeared from sea air, but the words still held. I thought silence made me weak, but silence is not retreat. It is the loudest boundary I've ever drawn, and I drew it for me. Behind him, the wind rustled the curtains. Ahead of him, the sea carried nothing back. And as the screen faded to dusk, a single line appeared, clear, unwavering. Silence is the loudest goodbye. You don't need to scream to prove your worth.